So I'm going to say something quite controversial. Star Wars just isn't very good. Welcome to SciTrek, your sci-fi TV and movie channel. Now, for some portions of the sci-fi world, this is a horrific thing to say, but I can't help but believe it. I've always been a Trekkie. I've always been a Star Trek fan first. I've never really loved Star Wars, but I have really enjoyed The Mandalorian in the last couple of years. I've enjoyed a couple of other things that Star Wars has done. As soon as there's a Star Wars movie, I will go and watch it. I'm normally quite disappointed, but I will go and watch it. But what really got me thinking about this was a recent Mandalorian episode. Now, I've already moaned about this in a couple of the videos, and if you're a regular Trekkie, you'll know. But the Mandalorian episode a couple of weeks ago with the giant pterodactyl thing, it just didn't make any sense. It was just stupid. So I started to think about, is Star Wars actually just generally stupid? Now, I think most of us will agree that the most recent trilogy had its ups and downs. I quite enjoyed them as films. I thought they were entertaining, but you can question some parts of the movies. And the big Star Wars fans, the real hardcore Star Wars fans, really don't like big parts of these movies. Really, The Rise of Skywalker for them and a lot of fans was maybe a movie too far. We could go back to the prequel series, which again has its ups and downs. Bits of those movies I really enjoyed. Bits of those movies I'm like, meh, and large chunks of those movies I want to forget. But the original trilogy, well, they were always great, right? Well, I watched them again recently, and all the way through, I'm thinking quite critically about the movie. And I've got to say, the dialogue is awful. It's written so badly, it's jerky. It kind of wanders off on tangents sometimes. It's read and in some ways acted like something that just has only really had one go at it, rather than actually them trying to make a good film. They've had to do a film on a budget and they've had to do it quite quickly. And let's remember as well, actually, that George Lucas had so little confidence in this movie that instead of going to the premiere of Star Wars: A New Hope, he went on holiday with Steven Spielberg and they came up with the Indiana Jones storyline idea. But why was Star Wars popular? Why is it popular if it's actually just not very well written, etc.? Well, lightsabers are cool. The Millennium Falcon is cool. The music is cool. And generally, things like the Stormtroopers uniforms and things like this, it's all really cool. There are lots of bits in there that they got to make toys out of that are really, really cool. Now, I briefly mentioned there that I'm not a massive fan of the story. Well, again, for a couple of reasons. There are some giant leaps of logic when it comes to Star Wars. The Stormtroopers, who are professional soldiers, can't hit the side of a barn. That's a bit of a problem. You have Luke Skywalker, who has been a farmer on a moisture farm his whole life, jumping straight into an X-Wing and becoming an excellent pilot. Now, we actually had this with Space Jesus, Anakin, from the prequel series, where he jumped straight into one of those. He actually is a really cool fighter, but he jumped straight into that, and he's again a really cool, amazing fighter immediately at the age of like 4. It doesn't really make sense, but at least they argued there that he'd been pod racing his whole life. Now, there have been some background stuff with Luke saying that he was also a pod racer and that maybe they actually put like training wheels on the X-Wing, either in a way that they put some sort of computer program on there, something to make it easier to fly for him. But look, we get this in Star Trek all the time as well, that they make a mistake in the writing or something doesn't make sense, and the fans have to then make up really intelligent reasons to make it make sense. It frustrates the hell out of me. If something doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense, and that's the end of it. And in Star Wars, there are loads of things that just don't make sense. And it's not just the original series. The last movie, so The Rise of Skywalker, I don't know why she called herself Skywalker at the end. Don't know where that came from, but hey, she did. She felt, a connection with Luke, and she wanted to forget her Palpatine past. But anyway, they did that. The massive star fleet that Palpatine then had on that planet, hidden under the clouds. How the hell did he make that fleet? There was thousands of ships, basically one for each planet. He was ready to wipe out the entire universe if necessary. Star destroyers with planet-killing capabilities. Now, I've heard other people say that, well, he was building that fleet for ages. So, back even when he was still the Emperor. So, if that's right, why was he building the Death Star? The Death Star was massive. It would have required enormous resources. The Star Destroyer with the planet killing gun underneath, far less. So, what people have basically argued is that, well, he was building that fleet while he was building the Death Star or the second Death Star. Well, that makes no sense. The other option is after he was thrown into the core by Darth Vader, he retreated to that planet and then started to build that fleet. So, again, this Emperor has massive resources. But still, even though he had that fleet and it was all ready and manned, by the way, he was just waiting. And talking about the massive resources that were required to build this fleet, think about the Empire. I'm not sure they're the bad guys. Now, the rebellion has no resources. A bunch of the people that actually work for it are criminals. If you think Han Solo, criminal. He's a drug dealer, basically, or a smuggler, criminal. They've got no ships. They've got ships that are basically barely work. In the original Star Wars movie, that rebellion set there was considered sort of thing the only one. The Death Star goes there, destroys that planet. That's the end of the rebellion. Now, actually, in the Andor series, we got to see that actually there was lots and lots of cells of the rebellion. They were set up like a terrorist organization, which does, to be fair, make sense because if you lose one cell, the other cells aren't compromised. Now, some point between Andor and the end of New Hope, you could argue that maybe several of other cells were destroyed. But that's not a very long time frame. We're only actually talking a few months. So that doesn't, again, really make sense. And it is actually a big problem between Andor and New Hope that the rebellion was sort of rewritten and reimagined because, again, as I said, they have these sort of like terror cells rather than the one organized rebellion base that we saw in New Hope. But the Empire is way better funded, way better supported, apparently, because they've got way more resources, and they can build star-destroying planets. They can build 2 Death Stars. They can build this entire fleet of Star Destroyers. They built an entire fleet of Star Destroyers to police the galaxy after the end of the Republic. People weren't rioting in the streets when the Empire took over. They were quietly getting amongst their work. Now, they might have been living in fear in lots of parts of the galaxy, but on the whole, the galaxy seemed to just get on with it. The people who joined the rebellion, and there weren't many of them, were the only ones that seemed to be unhappy. Now, I know this is maybe a metaphor between big government and small government and, like freedom fighters, etc. But at the end of the day, for the Empire to really be the bad guys, they have to be the bad guys. And if we live in a universe of democracy, which is apparently what the Republic was, then the Empire seems to be more popular. Nobody voted for the rebellion. People just decided to do it. So as I say, I'm not sure the rebellion are the good guys and the Empire are the bad guys, because the people seem to be quite happy with the Empire. There is also the storyline with the Zuhan Bong, this enemy that is going to come from outside of the galaxy and attack the Republic. And actually, the Empire would have been far more capable than the Republic in actually defending the people of the galaxy against that threat. So perhaps in a later series, we're actually going to see that Palpatine was actually just trying to defend people against this greater threat. I actually quite like that storyline idea, and I hope that's where they're going with the current crop of Star Wars. It does seem to be, though, that the only good bits of Star Wars is maybe some of the animated stuff, maybe some of the comics, and maybe some of the novels. The actual stuff we've had on screen, including the original trilogy, is actually not that good. This seems to be a franchise built on the toys rather than a franchise built on actual quality television. Now, I actually put a poll on. Now, this was a bit of a cheeky poll, but it was basically said, look, if you want Stargate to come back, you have to lose either Star Wars or Star Trek. Now, I thought that would be pretty 50-50 because the people that love Trek love Trek. The people that love Star Wars love Star Wars. So I put the question, just for fun. For Stargate to come back, one has to die. Which would you choose, Star Trek or Star Wars? We had 1,900 votes at the point of recording. 27% said Star Trek must die, and 73% said Star Wars must die. 3/4 of people were going, yeah, flush Star Wars down the loo. Star Trek is the one we want to keep, but it does just sort of show that if you're a sci-fi fan, Star Wars isn't really for you. But Star Wars isn't sci-fi, the people shout. It's science fantasy. That's just a cop-out. That's just basically a way of saying that, yes, we know this doesn't make sense, but don't worry about it. It's fantasy. Now, the other way of looking at it is a space opera. If you ever actually sat through an opera, in space or not, it's boring. And that's the other thing I would say about Star Wars. It's really slow and quite boring at times. Now, give me a good Star Trek episode any day of the week.
No. Jamie, I've heard way too much of this already. You cannot dog on Star Wars anymore. This is just, it's absurd.
No. I can dog on it because Harris, we've had this discussion for me. It's rubbish. It's all rubbish. It's badly written. It's rubbish.
It is pure joy encapsulated in space fantasy, and it couldn't be better.
I tell you what, if you disagree with me, why don't you do a video explaining it? And then everybody at home can understand why you're wrong.
Fine. I'll do it. I'll take the challenge.
So there we go. The challenge is set. Harris is going to come back with a video explaining to me why I'm wrong. So guys, why don't you get in the comments? Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why you think Star Wars actually is awesome. Or actually why Star Wars is, as I say, kind of crap. I'd love to know exactly what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps us out, and you will never miss any of our newest videos. Also, you can check out the description. There's loads of related SciTrek stuff, including Facebook link, Discord server where people go and have a nice chat, and things like our Twitter account. Also, you can go to patreon.com/SciTrek, where most of our new videos appear first. And for a small contribution each month, you can get to see them first and without the adverts. It also really helps the channel. As always, guys, please stay safe, and I'll see you next time.